All right, welcome everybody to our presentation. This is actually the last time we're doing this before we go back to Ghana in a couple, like 10 days, I guess, is when we're leaving. So it's coming up really quickly. But the reason we have been doing this presentation is that our organization we're completely off social media now. So we've been trying to find other ways to communicate with people, to get the word out. So we really wanted to tell the stories of some of our survivors because they are so courageous and so brave. And when we were posting on social media in the first place, we can't really show their faces. But in a setting like this with friends, we can show more. And we really want you to see their faces. We want you to see them. So that was kind of the origin about this, because they're so incredible. And the work that we've stepped into, I think as we go, you'll see why we're off social media. Because, you know, in this day and age that we live in, if you're pro-family or anti-trafficking, it can put a target on your back. So we just kind of try to just go under the radar and go get them. So that's, we just want to be able to have other people share in that a little bit and see, you know, what they do. So anyway, so just as a little by way of introduction, some of you know us, some of you don't know us, but my name is Becky Rogers, and this is a picture here of our family in 2017. We had an impression that we needed to just sell everything, get rid of everything, and move to Africa, because isn't that what people do? It was kind of shocking for everyone involved, and we have 10 children, and so the older 5 were young adults, and so, you know, they're thinking they're on their own, but they're totally not. So it was very inconvenient as far as you know, leaving kids to fend for themselves who really are pretty still vulnerable. But we took our youngest 5 with us, and the way that happened was, well, first of all, my second son had served as a service missionary in Ghana. And when he was gone, while he was gone, I just had this impression that I wanted to do something. There was something more for me to do. And I just had this very random skill set of, I was a music major in college. I'm a homeschool mom. I'm passionate about moms and education. I'm passionate about alternative health. And so I'm thinking, I don't have any idea how these things fit together. Like, is there even a pattern to that at all? And so it just came to a place where I just had a meeting with God about a few things and just said, okay, I don't know why you've given me this random skill set or what you want me to do with it. So just you come into my life and arrange it how you want it to be, like how it's supposed to fit. And within a couple of days of that, I started having this impression that we should put our house on the market. And we had lived in our house for 20 years and raised our kids in it, 10 kids. So we had a ton of stuff. And that was kind of out of, I really loved our house and I didn't want to move out of our house. And so I thought, surely that is just a harebrained crazy idea. So I will just set it aside. And it just kind of kept coming back and coming back. And finally, after I didn't act on it for a few weeks, I got a little bit chastised about it. With the idea that if you're going to play here and I give you an instruction, do it now, because everything is time sensitive. And so I was like, okie dokie then. So I went to my husband and I said, hey, would you ever consider selling our house? And he said, yeah, I'd consider selling it, but where would we go? Because we just have to get another house. And I said, you are right. That's exactly what I was thinking too. And even if you're moving down the street to get a house ready to put on the market is like a year, right? It's worth of work and all of that. And so we were nowhere near ready for that, but I figured I could just go back that way and say, okay, I did it. I brought it up. He thinks it's a terrible idea. He could put the kibosh on it, and that's great because I don't want to move anyway. And that very same day, I was driving my kids to their piano lessons like we did every single week for eternity. And I just felt this huge whoosh, like over my whole body, we're going to Africa. And I thought, that's hilarious, because I was scared to bring it to my husband. We should put our house on the market. And now you want me to go back to him and tell him we should move to Africa when he doesn't even want to visit. Like I had been back and forth with my son 3 times, I think, and we had taken some friends with us, just crazy enough to go to Africa on a whim. Didn't have any idea what we were doing, but we were, we learned pretty quick. But now we're supposed to, move there, and he doesn't want to visit. And so, but I also just got told, if I give you an instruction, do it now. I'm like, oh crap. So I have to go back to him later that night and say, ha ha ha. I made a joke out of it. Ha ha ha. We could always move to Ghana. And he just stops and he looks at me and he said, well, if we moved to Ghana, we'd have to learn how to live so radically differently. We'd have time to be a family, because we were running like all of the things. I was doing my things, he's doing his things. Our kids are all doing their things. Homeschool family. So there's like extra things, all the things. And so, and then he started to come up with reasons that we should go. And I was thinking, what
Who is this?
is happening right now? Don't anybody breathe. Like, what is happening? And so from that point forward, every day when I woke up in the morning, I would just have an idea in my mind of do this today. So like the next morning, I remember the thought in my mind was, put your house on the market and get everyone passport photos. And I thought, okay, cool. My brother-in-law is a broker. We are nowhere near ready to sell this house, but I don't want to sell it anyway. So no problem. Send us the paperwork and we'll send it back to you. You can put it up. Maybe if we're not ready to sell it, it won't sell, right? And then Saturday, Costco, we can go get passport photos. No big deal. And then the next day was a Sunday. And I remember waking up with the thought in my mind, now get rid of everything. And I was like, say what? What do you mean? Get rid of everything. And so from that point forward, we had to, we just started putting our furniture up on, Facebook Marketplace, and we did put our house on the market. And I think our idea was that, and remember that our older kids are thinking we were insane. Well, we kind of were, right? But we're insane. Our mom has lost it. I'm sure they still think that. So anyway, that's how it goes. But we, all the things we were doing sort of just slowed down and came to a halt. Like all of a sudden, like our church obligations just finished. I got out of the lease on my office in Provo on a total loophole. All our kids' best friends across the street moved down to Beaver, so they weren't around anymore. It was the craziest thing. Everything just started, slowing down. And then, and I remember people were asking us, well, where are you going to go in Ghana? And we'd say, we don't know. And they'd say, well, how long are you going to be gone? We don't know. Well, how are you going to support yourself? We don't know. What are you going to do there? We don't know. So, I mean, after a while, that sounds kind of irresponsible. Would you agree? We're going to take our kids over there when we have no idea what we're doing. And people were so much asking what we're doing. We just started making up stuff. We're like, we'll be gone a year, because that at least makes it sound like we have a plan. And it's reasonable. We had 2 young adult sons who were not dating anyone. It's reasonable to have a courtship in a year and then say, hey, we will get married when my parents come back. Like we're trying to intellectually figure it out, right? Well, after a while, we were thinking that we'll sell our house and we'll have some kind of little nest egg that we can take over with us so that we can set up a new house, number one. And then we can get by while we figure things out and what we're doing. And so that was our strategy. That sounds like a good plan, maybe. And our house didn't sell, and it didn't sell, and it didn't sell. And I used to be a buyer's agent, so I know that if you drop the price enough, it's going to get snatched up by someone, right? And it didn't sell, and it didn't sell. And I kept thinking, okay, well, do we need to rethink this? Like, what are we doing? No. Anyway, we ended up basically just giving our house to our best friends for what was left on the mortgage on it. And we walked away from it with nothing except this promise that we would have everything that we needed and we would never know where it was coming from. And so with that, we went to Ghana. And if I can find where's my button? Okay. So yeah, so we took our kids, everything was a miracle. Every piece of it was a miracle. We had like $1,000 in yellow fever immunizations and $1,500 in visas, and not to count the airfare to take everyone over there. And I had no idea how we are going to do that. And somehow on the day that was like the last day that we could do it and keep our schedule to be gone by May 31st, something would drop from someplace. It was crazy. So we ended up in Kumasi, which is where my son had served his mission because he knew a few people and somebody had helped us find a house that we could rent. So we show up there, we rent this house sight unseen, except for a video. We get there, it's like water is spraying everywhere. The electrical doesn't work. We had contractors in our house for a couple of weeks. The electricity goes out every single day. We didn't have any hot water. We didn't have any AC. We're living in, like in our house, we have bars on all the windows. They call it burglar proof. So that's pretty encouraging, right? And then we got like barbed wire around our compound. We're kind of scared to go out by ourselves because we don't speak the language. We don't know how to shop. We don't know where to find American food. We are Americans. So mozzarella cheese is kind of an important staple item, right? Or any kind of cheese would be lovely. I remember going to the market once thinking I was just going to buy 4 mangoes, and I accidentally bought 4 bags of mangoes. I was like, well, good thing you can freeze those. I mean, it was like crazy stuff. And when we got to our house, we each had just our 2 checked bags. So everybody just brought 1 bag of their personal things and then a box of books because we're homeschoolers, right? So everybody. And so we show up to this house, and our friends that had made the arrangements, they got us each a student mattress, which is just a foam pad basically on the floor. So we had a student mattress and a pillow. We had a bowl, a mug, and a spoon. And they got me an iron because apparently there was no memo about that, how little the chances that I'm ever going to use that. But over there, it's a big deal. You got to look sharp. So they aren't everything. So they got us an iron so that we would be prepared. And that is how we started off. And so this is what it looked like. My oldest when we went over, I think, was 16. This is Kendall. And my youngest was barely 5. So we took our 5 youngest kids and let the adventure begin. So many stories. I will spare them today, but someday. So welcome to Ghana. This is just a picture here of this is how we entertained ourselves because we had no furniture, like not a lick. So we'd sit on the floor, we'd play Uno games together. That little blow up lantern there in the corner, that's our light because again, the electricity goes out every single day. So we just sit in the kitchen floor. And when we got tired of playing Uno games, my kids started making up games and just making game pieces out of garbage. They got super, super creative. And it was kind of nuts. We just dove in and we started to do some projects. This was at an orphanage that we were doing some work in. This is my son and one of the guys that was helping with that. Anyway, so we'll skip through some of this. So that was our experience in Ghana. Well, what we realized there was that what we noticed was that people in our community, especially in our church congregation, 30 to 40% of the women did not read at all. And probably 60 to 70% of them were not. Oh, sorry. You got to mute yourself, Becky, because the 60% of them were not functionally literate, which means you couldn't give them like a lesson to teach or do something like that. They wouldn't be able to use that. But I could see right away the effect that had on them. Like I could, when I would walk in, I could see who they were because they would sit in the back and hope they wouldn't be called on, and they would equate their lack of education to their worthiness. And so it had very profound effects on them spiritually, that they weren't educated, which I thought was really interesting. And so for 18 months, we lived in Ghana like that and had no idea what we were supposed to do, just trying to get, find our way around. Our kids had left all their friends home and all of their comforts, and we had terrible internet. So it was hard to even call our family that was, that remained here in the US. But we did have some kind of intense adventures and some really great blessings. And so after 18 months, we had this thought that we will start a literacy center in our community where we live. And we actually lived in the upscale part of town, but there were still like, you'd have like a very nice house and then a shack next to it or in the front yard of it. I mean, it was very like economically, socioeconomically, it was very spread. And so, so we had, so we decided to do this experiment to see what would happen. And we set up one literacy center. We actually set up two between Christmas and New Year. So now it's been 6 years ago. The one in our community was just in a street shop, and I'll show you a few pictures of that in a second. And then the other one was in the Liberian refugee camp in a school, which was awesome because a literacy center is kind of a mini library with learning resources, and they didn't have any. Like even the kids in private school, the kids in public school, they learn how to read on a blackboard. So they've never been read to, they've never had picture books, like all those things that we think that help us develop our love of learning that are just integral to us, that we grew up with it, we take for granted. They don't have any of that. And so they don't love to learn. Why would you? You know, like they walk around with like I remember the first day we went to church there and I took my little girls to their class, and there was a lady in there and she had a stick in her hand and she she goes, fold your arms down, close your eyes, or I'll beat you. And I was like, oh my, so my girls they cannot come to this class without me. So I'm going to go and ask if I can teach music, because that way I can be in here, you know, with them, keep an eye on things. But I realized right away that everybody was new, and those women, they only had their school experience to model that after. They'd never seen the kinds of, you know, school classes that we have with fun games and crayons. Oh, heavens no. Like that's not even on the radar. And so that was the situation that we came into. And so we decided we'll set up these two literacy centers and see what happens. It was just an experiment. And we'll see if this will work. I'm connected to your Wi-Fi. Oh yeah. So this is the first one. We paid enough rent for this one. Normally we don't pay rent, so they could finish it. So this is my kids. They did it. Like they set up this literacy center. And we just started. In the city, most of them do. We got in the village. Those kids at that literacy center still come after school, so they've grown up in the literacy center every day. Now they're like fun people. These kids mostly go to school because of the area that we live. I think it's really important that they have their own. We do activities with them till they get tired and then play. Okay, so that is how we started that. And I I will tell you that in the Liberian camp, there's a picture in there of us going out into the camp and inviting the women to come. And they would just look at us like they did not know what we were talking about. Like, what do you mean? There's a school for us, you know? And they would just look at us and we'd have to explain it again. You know, no, you can come, you can come. And I remember, well, first of all, when we were getting ready to come and we didn't know why we were there, or why we were going, I remember praying and asking Heavenly Father's like, okay, I'm totally good in this place, not knowing what we're doing. I mean, I practice, but it's hard on my kids to just tell them we're going to go. We don't know how long we don't know when we're coming back. Right. I said, so if there's anything that's okay for us to know, then we'll gratefully receive that also. And immediately the words in my mind were mom school. And I thought, well, okay, cool. Thanks. I have no idea what that means or what that's about. But that same week at the Life Clinic building, I ran into somebody who introduced me to Joan Heckel, and she and her husband had just come back from a literacy mission. So the same week that came up, it's mom school. They had just barely come back from Ghana and they had served for 2 years developing a literacy curriculum. And so I met with her and I said, yes, we're moving to Ghana. And I'm sure she and her husband were like, oh, that's cute. You have no idea what you're doing. Like they didn't believe us probably for a second, but can you take this computer over to so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fine. So here we are, we come to do this literacy center in the Liberian school. And we had these women there that wanted to learn how to sew. And we told them that we would do a sewing school for them, but they would have to learn how to, they'd have to learn how to read first. And we weren't prepared to do a sewing school yet. So, but we were prepared with literacy. So we said, if you come for literacy class, then as soon as we get the sewing school and, you know, if you, I don't know, we set a goal for them that they could hit and then they could come into the sewing class. So, and it took us about 10 months to get the sewing school together. And, which by that time they could actually read pretty well. And so, well, and actually when I would go when I'd go visit to check on things, because this was a little bit away from where we lived, like 4 or 5 hours. When I'd go check on things, like I'd go 1 month and there were, I think, 20 women there. And then I'd come back the next month and it had doubled. And then the next month it had doubled again. And so I think at one point there was like 78 women that were coming for literacy every day. And then some of them did not believe that we would come through on our promise of the sewing school. So after a while, they just got discouraged and they quit, which was probably okay because we couldn't have accommodated 80 women in a sewing class right off the bat, right? And so, but what we did was we set it up so that we had a sewing class in the morning and one in the afternoon for 12 each. So we could accommodate 12 at a time. And after a year, those women could sew well and read well. And it's so interesting to see the change that comes over them. Just in their whole energy, like how they feel about themselves, how they start to be able to stand up for themselves. So they're not getting beaten and because their whole self-esteem starts to shift. Right. So, one day I was there visiting with a friend of mine from the US and she was in Accra with her husband on an assignment. And I was teasing her. I was like, you really got to get out more. So I'm going to take you. Let's go to the Liberian camp. I'll show you around. So we go there and it was right after New Year's. So they'd been on holiday at the sewing school, but they were getting ready to resume the next day. And there was one woman there who, she was cleaning up. She was getting the classroom ready for the students to resume the following day. And my friend met her and they got in a conversation and she asked the woman, she said, what does it mean for you that you can sew? And she said, and I was there to decide if we were going to continue this program. Okay, I'll just mention that. Okay. If it was being effective and if we were going to continue it. And so she asked her, what does it mean for her that they could sew, that she could sew? And she said, when I have a piece of fabric, like just a plain piece of fabric, and I make it into something beautiful, I know better how God feels. I thought, well, I did not see that coming. I guess we will continue this program. And then I said, how does it feel for you that you can read? And then she got so emotional about it. She couldn't even talk about it. The following year I came back. And so now she had completed 2 years of sewing. And I came back and I visited her in her home and she was sewing out on the porch. And by home in the Liberian refugee camp, that's like a bunch of chicken coops all stacked on top of each other. It's a whole other level of poverty from the rest of Ghana because it's a refugee camp. So she was out there, and I always show up when I don't tell them I'm coming because I want it to be a surprise. I want to know what they're doing when they don't know I'm coming, right? Um, she was so happy to see me, and she was so excited to tell me that she had gotten a job as a teacher in somebody else's sewing school. So now, and she said, remember when I first met you and I told you I wanted to be the madame? This is before she could read, before she could sew. I told you I wanted to be the madame. She said, now I am the madame. And so I told her I'd come back the next day and I would visit her in her sewing school and visit her students. And sure enough, she had like 15 women in there, and I don't know if I have any pictures of them in here, but there's some on our YouTube channel because they don't have resources. And they were doing fashion design. So they would make their designs and cut out their patterns from paper and sew them paper first, because if they couldn't afford to make a mistake on a piece of fabric, and it gave them something to do while they were waiting, to be able to acquire whatever fabric that they needed. But I was so proud of her. I still am. I adore her because of her commitment and her belief in herself, especially when you compare to the women who didn't have that same belief, right? And they couldn't overcome the mindset of who they were, but she had a vision and she did it. So super proud of her. So to this day, this is part of Families Mentoring Families, is our literacy program. That's where we started. And right now, as of now, I think we're running more than 300 literacy centers in 5 or 6 countries in Africa. And at our last count, taking roll, I think we have 15,000 learners in literacy classes every day across those literacy centers, which is mind blowing to me. I just think, oh man, like God did that. So this gal here is our in-country director in Uganda. My husband's sister came over to visit us last year because most of our families have no idea what we do. They don't really follow us. We're not on social media now anymore anyway, so they don't really know. My sister came a year ago, last year, and that was her first time, and she had a great trip. So you're all invited. So so we start this literacy program, and that's what we're doing. And then I had a couple of other things happen that just made me want to go back to Heavenly Father and say, okay, let's have another meeting, because I'm coming back to report, but I have a feeling I'm not seeing things how you're seeing them. So if there's something else, like you can like we'll receive it. And I had this idea about, in Africa and Ghana specifically, but it's the same in other places too. When you have a children's home, like an orphanage, most of those kids have parents, or they have a mother or a father. They have parents, most of them, but they can't take care of them financially. And so when it's a burden and they can't, the parents will bring the children to the government. It's their foster system, kind of, because it will be better for them to get an education that can be provided at the children's home or whatever. And so for me personally, as a mother, that broke my heart to realize that they would bring their kids and give them to the government, and then no one would work with the mothers again to get the skills that they need to take care of their children. And so I had this idea, like, what if we could do like a children's home, but where the mother comes with the children, and then we could work with the mother and make sure that that mother has skills. And so that was kind of our first idea about that. And at that time, we had an idea of a specific property that we had seen the year before. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. It was totally run down. I'll actually show you. I'll show you this short video clip of it. You can see how broken down and dilapidated and terrible it was. But we just got this vision for this like healing center where people could come. It's on 6 acres. All of the electrical wiring was stripped out of it. I'm sure somebody sold it off somewhere. The plumbing, I mean, it was a disaster, but we're like, yes, let's do it. So this is us going to check out and see what we're going to do, because we did not have any money to do this project. And I remember I called the seller back on this property because it's been a year, and I said, "Hey, is that property still available?" He was an Armenian guy. He wasn't a Ghanaian man. He was an Armenian guy, and he said, Becky, are you still in Ghana? And I said, "Yeah." And he just busts up laughing.
She's for herself.
He said, "Congratulations." Like, we made it a year, we're still there. And that was the only thing that gave him any credit, that gave us credibility with him, even though we had no money to do this project.
Ah,
But you can see, look, like the tiles are all, I mean, it's like, it was so bad.
It was obviously beautiful when it was
there's a
first
In its
bathtub in
day.
here.
Oh yeah. Well, this was their family legacy, their family
There are
inheritance.
lots of little steps, I've
Um,
noticed.
It was the place.
Oh, this is a room off of the kitchen?
Place to be. It was an Armenian family that owned
This
the
is the master
property.
suite?
And they had a
Kind
road
of.
construction, a very,
Huh.
very successful road
School
construction. You can see
children
through this
or
roof.
community
Isn't
children
that
who follow
awesome?
us
No
in here.
electrical.
the shower house. No, that's
This was like a bed, like they set their
Yeah.
beds down in a frame. I think
there's
that was the
bed
Armenian
area.
style of doing it. Sorry, it's
I
gonna
don't
make you,
really know.
so I won't make you watch well, I
I'm
guess we're
squeezing.
already through it. Okay. So that was our great idea that we were gonna do. So, um, so at that time, he said, okay, so it took me about 9 months just to wrap my brain around, is this even a possible thing? How would we ever do this? We have no money, not even $5 to do this project. And every time he and I would meet, we would just like hash out the vision of it again. And this is what we're going to do. We never talked about the price, even though I kind of knew what it was. And then it came to a point where it was time to make a commitment, to make a move on it. And there were so many miracles that happened with that too. But I remember sitting across from that man and his attorney at a restaurant, and he was asking me if this was something that was really realistic for us, if I really thought we could, or if we were just, we're talking about this, we're never going to go anywhere because it's been some months, right? And I remember just praying so hard, and I was, I was saying, okay, Heavenly Father, whatever, just tell me what we're doing, because whatever comes out of my mouth next is what we're going to do. And he had agreed that he would spread the payments of the property out over a year, which was still, I mean, great, yay, but still, that's a hefty payment every single month we got to come up with when we don't have $5 to start it, right? And so I'm sitting there across from him, and I said, yeah, we can do it. And then I'm thinking, should I excuse myself and go vomit out outside, or maybe like pee my pants would be better, would be more appropriate. Like, what did I just do? But at least now I know what the goal is. I know what we're shooting for. And so from that point on, we just started working on figuring out how we were going to do this. And every piece of it was a miracle. Every step of it was a miracle. And long story short, because we want to get to the girls' stories, we ended up paying for the property in full in 10 months. And COVID happened in the middle of that. And God did it. And it was so, like, someday I'll tell you the rest of the stories, because it was something. So this is what it looks like kind of now. So we've had to renovate and restore all of the buildings, start over from scratch on a lot of them. But this is one of the classrooms that we use for trainings for our girls. This was the boys' quarters, is what they call it. This is where, when the family lived in that compound, this was used as the servant rooms. So we just dressed them up and dolled them up and put bigger windows in them, put a new roof on it. If I showed you before and after pictures of that one, that's what I probably should have put in here. So that's one of the buildings that the girls stay in. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buildings on this property now. And we have rent on the property outside the front gate. I kind of like control of that, of our neighbors, the neighboring properties. And we use that. You'll see it in some of the videos. Okay, so that is how, so we started that project, and we actually did have 2 mothers who had their children, removed. And then we were able to bring them there. And then we got a call from Operation Underground Railroad, and they wanted to know if we would be able to accommodate survivors of trafficking. And at that time, I think we only had 1 building that was ready, but we said, yeah, if anything that we can do to help, we'll do it. And So they actually started to send us some women, and the story of how that goes, this video is too long to show you because it's like 20 minutes, but this is actually a reenactment video that some of our girls did, dramatizing their own experiences being trafficked and also being rescued and coming to the restoration center. That's what we call this. We call it the restoration center. And so they acted it out. And we had a friend who was a videographer, and they all had a relationship and they loved him and he loved them. And so they put this together, and it's actually really great. So if you're interested in that, I would be happy to send you the link. Just leave your email address or something and I'll send it to you. It's a private video. It's because it's, you know, it's their process. So, but so what typically happens is that these girls, there's so much pressure on them to provide support for their families, even their parents and their siblings. And so they think they're going out to work. So they'll have, they call them agents that will offer them a job abroad. And they've all grown up their whole life thinking they've got to go abroad if they're gonna, if they're gonna have any chance of anything. And I've seen it a lot of times on my WhatsApp groups. Like I'll see a post come across a chat and it'll say, go to Australia to work, passport guaranteed, job guaranteed, visa guaranteed. And then people will start chiming in and saying, I need more information on this. And then I'll comment and say, this is trafficking. Because if they click to apply here, somebody will start calling them and start charging them money for them to process their documents and those kinds of things. And then they'll come back and they'll say, oh, we don't have anything in Australia right now, but you can go to Dubai. You can go to Lebanon. You can go to Syria, right? Like you can go to Jordan. And so that is very, very typical. That's the story of all of these girls. That's what happened, where they thought they were going to go out and work and send money back. And most of them have children that they left behind in Ghana or in Ethiopia or in Kenya or Uganda, or Nigeria. And then they're thinking they're gonna, like, they left their children with their sister or an auntie or the mother, the grandmother. And then they're going to go out and work and then send money home to support the family. And then when they get there, as soon as they arrive, the agent and I can see it now, because now when I travel across, transcontinental Africa, when I check my bags, I can pick out while we're in the line. That guy's the agent. Those women are being trafficked. That group of guys over there. Like, it's like, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it's very clear. And I've even asked a couple of times airline workers, and I've said, are those girls being trafficked? Are those women being trafficked? And the first time that I asked, they wouldn't even look at me and they wouldn't answer at all. And the second time, when I asked the woman who was checking us in, and she said, yeah, they are. She said, but there's nothing you can do. They're in a contract and they're hoping it's not true. Like, they're willing to take that risk, is what I'm saying, because they're so desperate. So they're just hoping it's not true and that they'll be lucky and that that won't be their situation. So what happens is when they arrive on the other side, the agent on that side that picks them up, and I've seen this too, because when they arrive, like, the agents, like, the girls, come out, and then they have like a whole bunch of different, like, they all travel together. And then when they arrive at the airport, different cars come and pick up one girl, one girl, one girl, one girl, and then they're separated. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then when they get to the house where they're assigned to work, and most of them have traveled as domestic servants, but once they're assigned to a house, whatever that means, right? So they take their passport and their visa and their documents, and they say, I'll give this back to you when you fulfilled your contract or whatever. And the girls are thinking, okay, great, I'm going to work, I'm going to earn all this money. And they'll treat them okay for about a month, long enough for them to call all their friends and tell them they should come. And then after that, they won't pay them at all. They will work them 24 hours a day and not feed them. And we have girls like hiding in the bathroom from the son that lives in the house, or the husband, or they're regularly beaten, they're verbally abused, they're physically abused. When you work 24 hours a day and don't eat, what do you think happens? They get sick, right? So they'll end up in the hospital. So right now we find girls on the street. Well, the other thing that will happen is they'll run away to protect themselves. If they can find their way, and this is what they portrayed in this video. They'll run away, and then they're hiding on the street, because if they get caught on the street without a passport and without a visa, they'll get arrested and they go to prison. And if you can imagine, in the Middle East, it's not the same kind of prison we have here, or process or anything like that. So what happens is they'll run away, they'll be hiding on the street where they cannot work. They don't have a place to live, or we got a call, and this is how this started. We got a call from a girl who was there that was begging for help. And she was saying there were 50 girls with her in this apartment, and they were all just trying to, and she knew how to do hair. So every time she could get a hair job, like doing someone's hair, which wasn't even a full-time job, that's how she was trying to feed all of these girls that were there with her, because she was the only one that had that kind of skill. She said, sometimes I just have to tell them I don't have anything today, so go out and find something to eat. And so what do you think those girls are going to resort to? So even if they're domestically trafficked, it's sex trafficking in the end anyway, because they will not feel like they have any other option. That's the only thing that they can offer to survive. And so they'll be living on the street, sleeping on the street, and they're hiding from the police. So we usually find it, I should say we find them, they find us, but we're getting them from the street, the prison, and the hospital is typically how we'll find them. So that's kind of their generic story. Like, that's the story of all of them. That's what happens. And typically what happens is once they come to, once they get arrested and they go to prison, then the trafficker or the household they were trafficked to will come to the prison and make an accusation. Oh, this girl stole something. So now, instead of just a runaway case, she has a criminal case. And that's a whole other process. And there were all these crazy things. So this was the job that OUR was doing. They were finding these girls in prison, and then they would send them to us for aftercare when they had a girl that needed aftercare. Well, everything shifted around that last year, right? And all of a sudden, and I was realizing it was going to be mayhem there. But the thing that made me sick was that we still have all these girls that need help, and now no one's going to do those repatriations. So I was thinking, okay, we got to figure out how we can help these girls, even though it's not what we do. It's out of the scope of, I mean, we do aftercare, right? Like the repatriation process. We don't have anybody on the ground in Jordan. We don't have. No, well, I think they're there, but they're not doing repatriations anymore. They have people on the ground, but they're not doing it. We haven't heard anything from them since a year ago, September. And neither have any of the other aftercare centers that they were funding before. So, and they were always really, really good at funding their aftercare. So, taking good care of their survivors. But anyway, so we, so when it came up for us that we needed to do something. Oh, Andrea just popped. I don't know which Andrea is it. We have two Andreas in this group. Andrea Ray. So Andrea's family moved to Abu Dhabi about the same time we moved to Ghana. And so while we were learning our way around Ghana and figuring out all of whatever we needed to know, her family was navigating the Middle East and learning how to do this. And so she, on her own, she would go and find these girls on the street as well, and then take them to her house and get their hair done and find them something to wear and take care of them and feed them.
Here in Africa?
This was they lived in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, but
So they're African girls. Yeah, so she had to redo their paperwork. So she's kind of learned how to do all of that from that end. And so we start having all of these girls now. We're like, what are we gonna do? And so I called her and I said, okay, we're doing literacy. We're doing all these things. I'm not gonna be able to do all of this. I don't know how to do it, but I knew that she did, So I said, can you please help us with this? And so, as we're here, she does all of these repatriations, and she knows all of the girls by name. She knows all of their stories. She stays up chatting with them all night because it's daytime over there. She walks them through. She knows what kind of case they have. There's specific processes for all of those. If you make a mistake, those girls go to jail for good. You know what I mean? And so Andrea, I'm just so appreciative of the time and effort that she spends on that, and for the love that she has in her heart for these girls. because it's really remarkable. So that's basically how that kind of got started and what we were doing. So, oh, I'm going to show you this. Nope, I'm not going to show you that. That's the one I said I wasn't going to show you. So this is one of our girls. So I'm just gonna tell you a few stories of girls that have come to the Restoration Center. This is one of the first girls that we got, and she came to us from Lebanon. And she was assigned to a household where she had a relationship with the wife. The wife was friendly to her. She had a relationship with the wife, but the husband was very cruel and very angry. And one day he came home very angry. I don't know if he was drunk or what, but he just came home in a rage. And he moved toward where Patience was standing, and she moved away from him to where there was a window and a balcony. And he came at her and he hit her so hard that he knocked her over the balcony. And she fell, just crumpled in this heap. And she broke her arm clean through and her opposite femur clean through. And so here she is in this crumpled heap on the ground, and the woman comes down, and the police are called, obviously. And the woman's freaking out that she's going to go to jail with her kids for this. And so, in order to protect the wife, Patience literally took the fall for the husband and told the police that she had jumped. And so, to repay her for her kindness of saving their family, they took her to the hospital and dropped her off out back somewhere where she spent the night because she could not get herself into the hospital. Can you imagine? Like no pain reliever, no nothing. And she was found the following morning by a doctor on his way into work. So while she was there, she had surgery, and they put so much hardware in her arm and in her leg. And then she recovered at the safe house in Lebanon for a month or so, and a month and a half maybe. And then she came to Families Mentoring Families. And she was in our program. And then after it had been, I think 5 months, it was time to see if they could remove the hardware. And she was living for that. And I knew she was, because it was still hurting her, because there was so much trauma in it, right? Like, and so she, and I knew that it, like in her own psychological healing, it was really important that they get the hardware removed. So we looked around, I found the best possible orthopedic specialist I could find, who was running a clinic without an x-ray machine. So anytime they needed an x-ray, they'd have to take the patients out to a radiology place across town, like way across town. Anyway, so I took her for the consult, and he looked at the x-rays and everything. And he said, the only thing I can see that could be an issue is that these are very specific tools for these specific pieces of hardware. So you got this hardware in Lebanon, and if I don't have the same screwdriver, right, like to get it out, what happens if we cannot get it out? What happens if we just leave it in there? Because that's done now, right? They'll just leave it permanently. And she just broke down sobbing. And I could just see like that wasn't going to be a thing. And so I just put my arm around her, and I told the doctor, I said, we're going to pray for you, and you're going to do it. You'll get it. It'll work, And so he said, okay. And so this was her coming out of that surgery. She took it like a champ. She did both of those surgeries in one fell swoop. Then they did get it out. Yep. Yep. And now she has her own shop and her own apartment that's in the community, just in the community around where the Restoration Center is. Because what we found is when they're ready to go out on their own, they'll find a place around where we are, because we are their family now. So, and it's very common, sometimes I could not understand why these girls, some of them can't go home. Because I would think if that had happened to my daughter and she returned home safely, I would be so overjoyed to see her. And I didn't understand how many nuances there are to some of the issues they face. For example, if a girl comes home sick, the family can't provide the medical care for that girl, that she's a financial liability. So she can't go home for that reason. Sometimes the mother took out a loan Remember those agents that I said they'll start calling you and asking you for, money to do the process for them to go out. So they pay to get trafficked, if you can imagine. A lot of times the mother will take out a loan to do that process. And if that girl shows back up in the village without money to repay the loan, now the mother's in danger. You see what I'm saying? And so there's just things like that I didn't think of before, and where I just thought, oh goodness. So anyway, so patience is awesome. Okay, so this girl, Ellen, she also came from Lebanon. And when she came from Lebanon, she was so sick she could not keep water down. And so the aftercare team that had sent her, they actually held a special fast for her because they were afraid she was going to die. She also had terrible endometriosis, and she had had one surgery in Lebanon. And then when she came here, she was so sick. I saw a picture of her when she was met at the airport, and I did not recognize her. She went to another organization. And then after a while, several weeks, a month or two, then OUR called us and said, she's not getting better. Can we send her to you? And I said, please do. And I told her, and again, I looked for the best doctor we could find. The doctor that she had seen in Accra told her she needed 7 surgeries and he could not guarantee her fertility. And she thought, well, 7 surgeries, maybe something will happen and I just won't wake up in one of those. And then my problems will be solved because I just won't, like, that was the best that she could find, that she could think of, right? So she came to the restoration center, but she decided, because of some of the trainings and stuff that she does there, she decided she would give it 3. Sorry. Okay. She decided she would give it 30 days. And within 30 days of all the mindset mastery and all those kinds of things, and just being in a safe place, she was off all of her pain medicine, and she was waking up from pain in the night and having to dose herself through the night. So within 30 days, she was off all of her pain medicine. She never had any more surgeries, and she's totally well because of I don't know, because our program is so different. Yes. I don't know. Yeah, it's just so effective. It's just, yeah. Yep. So now so one day I had some guests up there at the restoration center, and they were asking me, so what is it that the girls get when they come here? And so I was spouting off answers to my mind. Well, they get safety, they learn skills, they get some security while they're learning their vocational skills and their vocational trainings. And then I had this thought, let's just ask one of the girls. So I saw Ellen and I called her over and I said, hey, what is it that you girls get when you come here to the restoration center? And she said, hope, like immediately. Like she said, hope. Like we didn't have any hope for a future at all. And then she said, the second thing is love, because this is the first place we've ever felt loved. And so I said, well, I'm so glad I asked, because those were lots better answers than the ones that I was coming up with myself. But now she is our head, she's our head hairdressing, like cosmetology instructor. So she just graduated a class of a bunch of girls and got them they all had to do their exams a couple of months ago. And she's an instructor, and she's kind of like an assistant to the assistant. She's the assistant to the director. And I think, next time we need to expand into another center, she'd be my first pick for a new director, because she's done so well. And I'm so proud of her. So that's Ellen. Okay, this one I am going to show you this, but I don't know if you'll be able to see, if you can see, because maybe I'll just tell you what they say. Okay, because I don't think you'll be able to read the subtitles. So this is actually a video we put together so that we could show it to girls before they come over. So it's in Tree. We made it in Tree so that girls could explain to girls that are still out this option that they can come to the restoration center in their own language. Does that make sense? So I'll tell you kind of like what she's saying, but. We use this facility to provide aftercare for survivors of trafficking. And here we have a situation in West Africa, and I think it's the same in other areas of Africa, where a lot of the young girls looking
looking for other opportunities. They feel that they need to go out to work, maybe become domestic workers. And once they go out to get a job, they think they are being hired as a housemaid or a receptionist or a nanny or something like that, someone to do work in the house in other places in the world, and that they will be able to send money back for their families here. And what they find is that once they leave home and they arrive at the place that they are expected to work, their passports are removed. They don't have the legal paperwork that they need to be in, and they find out that they have been trafficked.
So here she traveled because she needed to support her father and her siblings. So that's typical. The initial weeks were good. But after that, it wasn't easy. They didn't provide accurate information about the nature of the job. We didn't have enough no proper sleep, mistreatment. This girl thought she had coronavirus, and she asked the people to take her to the doctor, and they refused and ignored her for 3 days. She objected to working, and they contacted the doctor, and it was confirmed that she had COVID. They put her in the grooms where they poured their other items, and they just threw food to her in the garage.
Almost using a passport.
They seized her passport so she could work after she escaped. She went to the
Ghana consulate and also
them. They helped her in getting in touch with Ms. Sally, who's on the other end and associated with family members. She had a ticket and arrived back in Ghana. Restoration Center is a place you find freedom and peace. This woman talking to Dr. You arrive, we'll guide you through activities that will help you have a better future. She's amazing. We aim for them to acquire skills for a trade because no one can take away those skills. On my return, I spent 2 weeks with my family and decided to come and assess the situation. When she arrived, the treatment was good.
Treatment is very good.
Training session was in progress.
Yes,
Sense of self-awareness. Training available, sewing and hairdressing. If they were any place else, they'd have to pay. So, free to choose whatever option you prefer.
And also 2 weeks,
Give them an allowance of 2 weeks if they hit their goals, which gives them just a little bit of spending money so they don't feel like they while they're earning money. We want them to save any money that they earn for when they're ready to go. This girl didn't have any knowledge of hairdressing, and now she's great. She's also one of our
4 months,
Yes, I saw a mental digest. And I feel so life story. FRC. Life story say it be a day. AC wa brabo. And I will come once.
If I were men can negative things and always
express positive things about themselves.
We're best to go.
It's a complete mind shift is what we're going. Right? Like, otherwise they'll just end up back.
You are joining because I knew we did it. Yeah, come up out the better. And then I bet you.
And then it's the child they were here. Yes, my child dear. My child dear. We feel proud, and I know the Shelly make us like Emma Wawa. And me go and say, see,
after 5 years, my goal is to have as many shops as possible,
5 years
more than I can even count.
Not me shops, I hold on, I'm to mean kind.
Next 3 years, me person
To
yankopo.
have a house,
On
and
my
next 3 years is to own a shop.
me see me die. Me nya me store. Na me nya me
Establish your own
juma.
business.
My advice will be as uncle. Because Ghana
We advise anyone attempting to leave, they shouldn't do it, but rather they should come to the restoration center and
ask Kafato. Nebraska, FRC, Oba, Ejumasua, Yenju once a day.
So
Oba Suya, what the free aqua, like what the Babo Abrabo, so
you can leverage these
when
skills
you
in your life. This was a birthday party. This video. I just love to see them have fun because they open it. It's fun to see them. The birthday girl. Oops, wrong button. Okay, so this girl, Francisca, we'll come back to her later in just 1 minute. But because we have a video with a little clip of her, the message that we got from her on the phone, which is typical of the messages that we get every single day. So but remember her. This is her at the Restoration Center. She just finished her exams for hairdressing, and she rocked it. So, okay, this girl is Andrea, do you want to tell Sandra's story if it's Andrea Ray and the other Andrea? I'll show you this video of her getting arrested while she's getting on. You can see the police coming to take her, running away.
My phone.
This one?
Yeah, original passport. What original passport?
Your ID passport.
So anyway, so this girl is Sandra, and she had a case. I hope I get these stories right, because there's so many stories and I easily mix them up. If Andrea's on here, she can correct me too. She had well, actually, you know what? I can actually play you. Hang on, this will be even better. Okay, this is just a little bit of a piece. So these are the conversations that we have every day. This is what it looks like. So these girls will call Andrea on the phone, and then she'll figure out what to do with them.
I'm gonna send you a picture of her passport. I'm just driving right now. So this is a girl that I was telling you about, that it's a pretty serious situation. So she's ready, that she needs a ticket like right now. So what happened is, this girl, she was working for a family, and the man has accused her of stealing $13,000.
$13,000.
She didn't steal that. So it's you know how they do that sometimes, and it just gets them in a lot of trouble, the girls, and then they just go to prison. And the thing is, over the last little bit, they've been able to work with this and get it so that the court case can be like dropped. But there's just a small window for her. She needs to leave really quickly, because when the man finds out, the employer, when he finds out, then he could take it to another court. And the problem is, if he does that, then she's toast. Like, she'll be going to prison.
So we just have a narrow window. We have to
leave,
get her out.
and when he goes, then they can just find out, oh, she's already left the country and she's out. So
Isn't that crazy?
It's a little bit of an unusual situation.
So anyway, so that's a little bit of the story of Sandra. So Andrea made those arrangements and moved her from that prison while we were waiting for her ticket to come up, so that she wouldn't be there when they came back looking for her. And she's back home. I put these, so those first two girls were some of the first girls we got. These last two are recent cases that were actually in process when I put together this presentation. She is back home now. This okay, this girl Diana, this girl was in Iraq, and she was also very, very sick, and we were concerned about her, and we didn't have anybody on the ground in Iraq. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know how to get her out and how to do her paperwork. And this was right as we were leaving to come here. And I met, the week that we were leaving across, I met a woman who had herself been repatriated from Iraq. And she's kind of an advocate now. And I had this ding, 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 like she was in Iraq. So I called her, or I sent her a message. I said, who did your repatriation? So she gave us a couple of numbers of people. And we were able to somehow figure out how Andrea did it, figure out how to get her home. They wanted money, before they would let her go. And the traffickers, the agents and stuff like that, before they would let her go, they wanted her to pay money. And we can't do that because we can't pay money for that, because then it's incentive. It's like hostages, right? Like it's incentive to them. They make money by holding the girls until we're ready to pay, and then they can charge whatever they want. We'll just pay for it. Like we can't do that. So Andrea gave her some coaching on how to go and renegotiate with her traffickers. And she said, she told her basically that, we were all going to pray for her, and she needed to go tell the traffickers this and this and this. And she was terrified, but she did it. And then she left us a voicemail, left one for Andrea, said, "I'm still shaking, but I did what you said. And I told them what you said to tell them, and they said I could go." So she came home also recently. And now we have people on the ground in Iraq. So now we can accommodate girls. And in January of this last year, we started a new aftercare facility in Nigeria. So now we can accommodate Ghanaian girls, Nigerian girls, and we can accommodate them from all of those countries. So last month, when Beirut was being bombed, we had all kinds of issues trying to get these girls tickets, because there's only one airline that was flying out, which was Middle East Airlines, which is not one that we usually typically use. And Andrea was trying to do the tickets. And as soon as she we got a call from the social workers, and they said, "We have girls that need out of here now. Like, we've brought them into places where we think they're safe while Beirut is being bombed." And so Andrea would go and try to figure out like what flight they could take. And by the time she got the girls' information in, the flight would go from like $500 to $4,000. Because anybody that could leave, that could have had the means to leave, is going to fill up those flights immediately, And so she spent literally a week trying to work through that and figure out the best way to do it, to get those girls out of Beirut. And so the ceasefire in Beirut was such happy news for us, because that means that they'll start flying, like we'll be able to get them out. Right now, we have a girl in Saudi, a Ghanaian girl. And we haven't had a way to get girls out of Saudi before this girl. And then we have an Ethiopian girl in Syria. And in Syria, the prisons are all underground. And so these girls that go to prison there, like this girl that we've been working with to get her out, get her back home to Ethiopia, there are other girls there in the prison that haven't seen the light of day for 5 years, or they haven't, there was one girl that they did get her a ticket, and she went to the airport the day that the bombing started in Syria last month. It was Beirut the month before, and then Syria last month, right? And she arrived at the airport right as they closed the airport because of all of the bombing that was happening. And so they turned around and they took her back to prison. And her comment was how grateful she was that she had seen the sun on that day. And so, so both of those, so that girl is we're working on getting her tickets, getting her out, but we've decided it would be better to move a group of them instead of one of them at a time, because of the situation in Syria. She has to do a border crossing. We have to move her into Beirut, or back into Lebanon, so she can fly out of Beirut. And it's best we don't want to send a lone girl doing that. So we're going to send a group of them. Okay, this picture represents this part of this work that we wish we didn't deal with or didn't have to face, but sometimes we have situations like there was one girl that Andrea was working on getting her out, and she had an asthma attack, and they would not treat her at the hospital because she didn't have a passport, and she died there. We're also finding out that, and the traffickers and the houses that they're trafficked to, they've used Africans as slaves since the beginning of time, so they don't care. They'll straight up tell them, "You're going to die here. We'll throw your body in the desert. You'll never see your family again." Like, they're just straight up abusive in that way, emotionally abusive to them. But we're finding out now, hearing stories, that they're starting to use them for organ harvesting, which makes the work that we do all the more urgent. Like, we got to get girls out, as many as we can get out as quickly as possible, because what happens is when they're really sick, they go to the hospital, they'll present them with a piece of paper all in Arabic, "Here, sign here for a surgery, blah, blah, blah," and then they'll come out minus kidneys and other organs and things like that that were not the issue that are then sold on the black market. So this is just a part of, I don't know, it just is heartbreaking. So these are ways that people can help because they ask us. We need a lot of prayers for our girls, for FMF, for Andrea, as she figures out how to get them home. I mean, you can probably tell from some of these stories, we have help. We have angel help because every piece of it is a miracle. We cannot account for what we do, but spreading the word because people have no idea that this is a thing and that it goes on, and trafficking is happening everywhere. This is just the version of it that we know, but it happens here, and people need to be aware of it I mean, our kids need to be aware of it just so we can protect them, because they're tricky. You can serve on a committee or you can volunteer. We have a bunch of committees that we run that we always need volunteers for. You can come on an expedition if you want. You can become a monthly mentor just on our website. You can sign up to do monthly donations there. You can mentor a leadership course. That's something we're bringing on in this upcoming year because we've really discovered through all of our time there that what we're really trying to accomplish is that mindset shift. Right? I had a mentor once who said, even the caboose is better off in a system designed for the engine than one that's designed for the caboose. So we can do all the soap making trainings, try to teach how to do a business that will barely get them something to eat, but still won't cover their school fees. Or we can start to train in a leadership education, teach them more advanced business skills so they can do a business that's scalable. We need people to hire people who aren't entrepreneurs. Not everyone's an entrepreneur. And so we're bringing on a whole new leadership education piece, which is very cool. And then lastly, we always accept donations because we cannot do what we do without people. Okay, this is the video. This is the last thing. This is a video that my daughter put together. My 18-year-old put together for me when we came back. She did a beautiful job on it, and there's that little clip at the end of it, which is the voice memo that we heard of Francisca, that girl that I showed you. And you'll hear in that clip her asking for help, and then there's a little break where Andrea talked to her on the phone and told her that we could help her and that she could come to the restoration center when she came back to Ghana. And you'll see, you'll hear the difference in her voice immediately of that piece of hope. So here you go. Let's see.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen.
No, these are the pictures that they sent us.
I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true. I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true. I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Mommy, it's me, your girl, Francisca. Atre Anewi. Mommy, it's not easy for me in this Jordan. Mommy, I don't have anybody to cry up to. I'm begging you in the name of God. Take me as your daughter. Put me into school so that I'll become a great person in future. I will never turn my back on you. Mommy, you are my last hope. I'm praying you and Abdullah. I believe in you and Abdullah have told me everything.
He's the guy on the
Mommy,
side.
please, this is my request. I'm suffering, going to work without money. I don't have anything on me to give to my kids. I came here to struggle, but I've struggled enough. But there is no hope. And Abdullah have assured me I should have faith in the Lord. Mommy, I need your help. Please, I want to go home because I'm suffering, Mommy. I'm suffering.
Madam, please, anything they will teach me, I will learn, please. I want your help. I want your help, please. Help me in the name of God. Anything I will do, please.
So, yeah, I think that video is powerful, but it's not as powerful if you don't have some of the context to it, you know, the understanding of their story and where they're coming from. So thank you for sitting through all and thank you for coming and caring enough to find out, you know, their stories. I hope you can see now why I want them to be heard. I want them to be seen because they're truly amazing and brave, and we're just trying to spread the word and create more awareness, especially with us not on social media. So feel free to talk, like tell your friends. Okay, are there any questions? I guess I should ask. We should.
So what's the best way to get information? Is everything website and
Yes,
the
okay.
newsletters or what?
Yeah, so if you want, because we're not on social media, if you want to follow our updates, you can go to familiesmentoringfamilies.org. And I think there's a pop-up that comes up that asks if you want to receive our updates. That is a monthly update. I am getting better I'm working on this, getting more consistent and sending out those monthly updates, especially now that I'm not spending my time on social media, but I'm not nearly organized enough yet to create very much spam. Like, so if you sign up for that update, just know it's a little hit and miss right now while we get things organized, but you'll get notified when we send out like a monthly update. If you become a monthly donor, we do send out just a weekly email with like a story, like somebody like one of the girls' stories, or just kind of, we have some more content just for people who are already on the monthly donor list. In that way, if there's not a pop-up, I think you can sign up. I think there's a place to sign up for updates as well. So you just created an account. I think it does give you a double opt-in. So you have to, like, if you sign up, then it'll send you an email, then you have to, like, you know the drill. You have to approve it in your email. But that is the way we're going to be communicating with people from here, not on social media. So it's kind of new for us as we figure it out. And we just literally, so I should tell you that I think from September to December last year was when we were figuring out how to do the repatriations from Jordan. And so over the course of this year, now we've added all those other countries, and then we've added potential countries for aftercare. Like right now, we're looking at doing an aftercare facility in Ethiopia. We're looking at bringing on, there's 2 aftercare facilities in Sierra Leone that were part of OUR before, but also haven't heard from them. So we sent them a message in the summer and said, hey, are you interested in coming in under FMF, which they don't have any funding anymore. So they're, of course, but they also have been to Ghana and seen our program. They went back to Sierra Leone, tried to implement it without any training or anything like that. But the thing that's cool about our program is that, and this is how we got the Nigeria Aftercare Center, the Lebanon social workers, they were saying, where else do you have aftercare programs? Because we want your program. Because the girls they keep track of them after, when they are repatriated, they follow up with them like indefinitely. And they said, the girls that are coming to you are doing so well, and they're happy and they're thriving. We want your program. So where else do you have aftercare centers that we can send? Because they're getting not just Ghanaian girls, but Nigerian girls, and they have all of those nationalities. So right now we're kind of at a point where this aftercare center is running the program very successfully, and we can duplicate it. And so this upcoming year, we will be doing those 2 aftercare centers in Sierra Leone, and we will be doing the Ethiopia one and Uganda and also Kenya, I'm certain, by the end of the year. So we'll be able to accommodate all those kinds of girls. But in the meantime, like from January to now, I think we have repatriated more than 200 girls, which I cannot account for that. I can't account for how we like paid for it or how the money worked. It's God's math. Andrea did that. All of those. And
they're at the restoration.
They're not all at the restoration center. We have about 30 girls there right now. In the Ghana one, and then we have the Nigeria one too. The Nigeria one, we're just getting ready to finish. They built a new building to expand to accommodate more girls in Nigeria. So we're putting the finishing touches on that. Someone just gave us a generous grant so we can get that finished up. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I can't account for it. Every time we need something, then we just ask Heavenly Father for it, and it drops from somewhere, and He knows exactly what we need. He's heard, you can hear her. I mean, these girls are praying. That's what they've got, right? And their faith. And so He's heard them. So, but we cannot do what we do with literacy or aftercare or leadership education or any of those things without lots of help. We are way past the point that we did it with our kids. We can't do that anymore. So. Yeah. Any other questions? I can stop the share for now.
Are you collecting anything here to take back with you?
Like what? Like literacy supplies and stuff like that? Yeah, we always collect. We always collect stuff for that. We have a donor committee or donations committee that they'll do book drives and stuff like that. And then they'll help actually, because we're getting ready to leave on the 13th. And so some of them are coming over to help us pack what's going back with us now. we want to invite, people to come over because that's how we get our stuff over there. Is with visitors. That's the best way to do it. And right now we're expanding literacy centers faster than we can get supplies over. So we have a literacy committee that is now putting together curriculum that we can email them this activity or this reader or whatever, and they can print it there so that we have some of those supplies that they can use while we're getting them more supplies. We also in July just published our first reader about a little Maasai boy that dreamed to read. And we just did a run of 50 on that right before Christmas, and it sold out right away. But that's also one way that we're going to hopefully be funding our literacy program in the future. We have a second book that's a folk tale. It's a storybook. It's an artistic piece. It's beautiful. I was hoping we were going to have it out by Christmas, and we're just this close. Like we just got to put the ISBN together and then just the finishing touches on the formatting to send it to the printer. But that's going to be beautiful. I mean, that one's beautiful too. And we had the illustrations done by a Ghanaian man there. It's about Anansi the spider, who is one of their folk characters, but he's a spider with the personality traits of a man. And so I was trying to think, how would you even illustrate this? So I said, let's ask a Ghanaian. They grew up hearing these folk tales from the time they're little. How did you picture it, when you were a kid? And he did a beautiful job on it. So
How do the girls from all these different countries get along with each other?
that is a good question. Once they've been through this kind of trauma and they have this in common, they get along pretty well but at the same time, there's still a lot of tribalism. There's a lot of tribalism across all the African countries. As far as I know, we might have issues here and there with somebody new coming in, but for the most part, by the time they know if they want to keep their spot at the restoration center, they're on their best behavior. If they want their allowance, they got to hit their goals. Their attitude has to be perfect. We have we have like a zero tolerance for any kind of shenanigans or backbiting or, any kind of thing like that. And they can lose their spot super easy. Oh, I forgot to mention that since we are paying for, the hairdressing instructor and 2 sewing instructors and a catering instructor. And we have girls that are spread out over those 3 trainings. We also invite girls from the community to come because we call that anti-trafficking. Because if we can give them skills before they feel like they need to go out, then we can avoid having to get them back, right? And so we have a lot of girls from the community that come to the restoration center for class in the day. And they also know, and we don't charge them for the training. They do have to buy their own supplies, where we provide that for the girls, or they provide their own supplies with their allowance. The girls do. But the community girls, when they come, and they have to check in at the front office and sign in on the roll what time they came in, and they know if they're late, we give their spot to somebody else. So they take it really seriously. And so when I got all the videos of their testing and their graduations and things, anyway, at first I was grumpy about it because it costs so much money to do their government processes. And I was like, when really was the last time you asked to see the certificate of whoever cuts your hair? Right? I'm like, you don't need a certificate to cut hair. But as I watched them prepare for their testing and how seriously they took it, I realized, oh, it's not about, showing somebody else that they're qualified. It's for them. Because for them, it shows them that they're qualified and they're trained and it helps them own it. And so I was like, okay, we're going to keep doing the testing, but we are going to have our own testing company, do it ourselves. And that way we can test other people. Other people can pay us to test. So anyway. Yeah.
Amazing. What kind of skills are you looking for? Because I mean, you've got all the committees and stuff, like what kind of things do you need?
The kind of committees, yeah. So like, if anybody wants to get involved, we can probably find a place for whatever gifts and talents that you have. We need audio video editing. We need donor relations people to help, like even writing some of those donor updates, blog posting, so like just some of that stuff that I can't keep up with it myself. I do my best, but then you'll find that, like it's been a little while, we haven't posted a blog post. And we have a literacy committee. We have, I'm going to forget them. We have donors, and what else? like the tech, like audio, visual, those kinds of things. There's some other ones too that I just can't think of off the top of my head. It's like my husband says, never make a list because you'll always forget the last one.
Right. All these committees and you helping, like, how do you do their budgeting and have, like, all that system? Like, you have someone who's running that?
Like which budgeting, like our budgeting
Oh, the
or,
girls,
oh, the
like,
girls.
Yeah, like,
Well, no, so, well, the girls do their own budgeting, but they have training on that. So
but
that,
like, if they don't make their goals and all of
well, if they don't, like, that means completing their training and their assignments and their literacy assignments, because they're also in literacy and other kinds of education while they're doing their vocational skills. They also do like that mental mastery kind of training
Are you teaching that?
twice a week. No, I'm not. Timothy's doing it. He's a fantastic coach, and he teaches them once a week. And then the second training that they do in the week, the girls that have been there, the older girl, they're older, they're not necessarily older, but they've been there the longest, they train the younger ones. So we try to get them into leadership positions like right away. And right now, some of them that have been there a while, like Ellen, I told you about, we're working on putting together some presentations that they can do. They can take around to churches and schools to warn girls that this is how it looks like. They will not listen to me. They probably won't even listen to them, but we have to try. We have to try to get the word out. And maybe if enough girls tell the same story, then they'll start to believe that it's not what they think it is. And like Ellen wants to be a motivational speaker. And so even the girls in Nigeria and the trainers in Nigeria, she's training them. And I put her on doing the training, like training the new Sierra Leone people. We have to get the Sierra Leoneans better internet, but Happy New Year. That'll be one of our top priorities. But yeah, but as far as the systems, yeah, my husband is amazing. He literally runs our house and homeschools our kids and this is their homeschool. They've grown up doing this. They've seen stuff. You saw those pictures in that video of Miriam, and she goes to sewing class with the other women. And so some of those girls that were hugging her, one of them was the sewing instructor picked one of her students to mentor Miriam. And so the teacher is teaching her student how to teach. Does that make sense? And I remember one day Miriam, she wanted to do something special. And so she baked cookies and wrapped them each individually in aluminum foil and took them up to the restoration center for her sewing class. And then we got there, she was worried that she didn't have enough. And so then I was worried and I thought, well, we can't give them out if we don't have enough for everyone. And the teacher that was there, she said, it's okay, we'll just share. So they just unwrapped them all and they broke them in pieces to just make sure everybody, was included. And there's just so many things that we learn from them every day that are just kind of crazy things. So anyway.
Really good. I was saying, thank you.
Yeah, we are, if anybody's interested in participating in that leadership education program, that is something we are definitely going to be in need of in short order. We have 3 classes we're getting ready to start right now that will just be 8-week classes. And then after that, we're going to start filling in that curriculum.
Well, throw out some ideas of like what you're looking for, what kind of classes, like classics and history and
classics and history, politics and economics, and I have a spreadsheet and I've drawn out like 3 or 4 semesters of potential topics, and we have to teach them how to read a book. Because that's a new skill. Even if they've been to school, even if they're educated, like to do that kind of extrapolating,
Well, there's the 4 layers.
Yeah,
It's like they're not ready for that.
Yeah.
The deeper layers.
But all of our leaders, right? Like our leadership, we're going to put through that leadership education piece first. And I think eventually that is going to be a K through college and through university kind of school, but totally outside of government requirements. So we can do what we want. And if we can learn enough leadership education, learn how to think, then we don't really need everyone's permission to do or certification, or you know what I mean? As part of that leadership education program, this last year, we sent 9 students to Uganda to permaculture training for 5 months, 5.5 months, so that they could learn it. They learned commercial farming, like family gardening, all of the like pigs, goats, rabbits, chickens, fish, like they learn all of that. And then like the business aspect of farming and doing it, permaculture. And then they've come back, they come back to their own communities to teach that. Our goal is to have everyone food self-reliant ASAP in that way. And we have another group that's ready to go. They'll leave in, I think, 2 weeks to go to Uganda for the next cohort of that training. And then I think from there, we're going to start having them build out that same training in West Africa and East Africa. So because that way we can send more people if we're not having to pay the tuition. But also that school that does that, that's how they build their commercial farm, their demo farm, is because people will come for that training and then they do projects and they work. And so we were thinking, why don't we just do that ourselves and have, training, like we train them on that, but then they're the ones that are working on our farm. So as they're doing it, so that way we can build our own systems as well. So that's part of the leadership education piece.
I bet they'd be pretty open to the school that I built.
Yeah.
Like, because they're just open, they're just ready to receive.
Yeah, very much. Well, they're very hungry for education. I mean, I think the best way to describe it is my mom's a music teacher, and I was a music teacher my whole life until we went to Ghana. And I can't tell you how many terrible music students I had who didn't want to do it, but their moms dropped them off and made them do it. And think of that aspect of education. Like in our education here, how many kids take education for granted? They don't really want to be there. They don't care. Do you know what I mean? And so they don't appreciate it. And over there, yeah, they take it very seriously, because that's their only key to a better life for their future. So
what tribes are they from?
In Ghana, it's mostly Ashanti. There's Ga tribe, Fanti tribe, Ewe in the east, and then there's other more Muslim tribes in the north. But Kumasi, where we live, the city is like the capital or the seat of the Ashanti kingdom. And the Ashanti kingdom is probably the biggest of the Akan languages. So they speak Twi there, and most people in Accra will speak English because that's how they communicate across those tribes. Yeah, Kenya, they have lots of tribes. So yeah.
Do you know any of them received any patriarchal order, like blessing of a tribe?
Yeah, a lot of them, but I don't know very much information about that. But yeah, I can find out. Yeah.
Tribe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's but
Yeah.
I think that they have Israeli blood. I know
Oh, for sure.
Ethiopia, their language is so close to that African language, or the Hebrew.
The Hebrew, yeah.
That's cool.
Any other questions before we sign off? No, that's a good one. I just don't want to keep people because I know we've been going way later than we meant to. All right. See you guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye.